The conference hall stretched wide and tall, built for beings much larger than humans. Ambassador Lisa Grant walked across the polished floor, her boots making soft clicks with each step. Around her, creatures from 100 different worlds filled the seats. Some had scales, others had fur, and a few seemed to float without any visible means of support. This was the Galactic Council, and Lisa was about to defend her species once again. She took her place at the human station, a small platform that rose from the floor. Above her, the massive form of High Chancellor Vexthor loomed, the reptilian leader's golden eyes fixed on her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Was it concern, fear? Maybe both. The council recognizes the human delegation. Vexthor's voice rumbled through the chamber. His words came out in his native language, but the translation device in Lisa's ear converted them instantly. We gather today to discuss a matter of galactic security. Lisa felt her stomach tighten. These meetings never went well. 47 years had passed since humanity joined the galactic community. 47 years since the First Contact War, when human ships fought the mighty Krillian Empire and refused to surrender despite being outmatched. The war ended in a draw, something the Krillians had never experienced before. Since then, the galaxy looked at humans differently. Ambassador Grant, Vexthor continued, several member species have expressed concerns about human military expansion. They fear your kind's aggressive nature. The holographic display in the center of the room flickered to life. Images appeared showing human Marines in combat. Lisa recognized some of the footage. The Battle of Epsilon Ridge, where a single human battalion held off an entire Krillian division. The defense of New Terra, where human fighters turned back an invasion force through sheer determination and tactics that made no sense to other species. We fight when we must, Lisa said calmly. We defend what is ours. Is this not the right of all species? A delegate from the Vorash Collective stood up. The insectoid creature's wings buzzed with agitation. You do not simply defend. You attack with a fury that frightens us all. Your warriors do not retreat. They do not surrender. This is not normal. We survive, Lisa replied. That is what we do. Commander Jake Morrison watched the broadcast from his ship, the UNS Defiant. He sat in his captain's chair, surrounded by screens showing various ship systems and star charts. His crew worked quietly at their stations, efficient and professional. They were good people, well-trained and battle-tested. Jake had fought in 7 major conflicts during his career. He knew war. He understood the cost of every decision, every order he gave. His dark hair had started showing gray at the temples, and the lines around his eyes told stories of sleepless nights and hard choices. Commander, his communications officer called out, the council meeting is getting heated. Put it on main screen, Jake ordered. The view screen switched to show the council chamber. He watched as another species rose to speak against humanity. Then another. They all said the same things in different ways. Humans were too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous. Jake understood their fear. During the First Contact War, human tactics had confused every military analyst in the galaxy. Humans used strategies that seemed insane, took risks that no other species would consider, and somehow won battles they should have lost. The galaxy learned that humans were fighters, survivors who refused to quit no matter the odds. But Jake knew something they didn't. Everything they feared about humanity, that was just the regular military, the standard forces, the troops that every species in the galaxy could see and study. There were other humans, other soldiers that the galaxy had never encountered. Jake pushed that thought away. Back in the council chamber, Vexthor raised a clawed hand for silence. The room quieted immediately. There is another matter, the High Chancellor said. 3 months ago, a new threat appeared in the outer systems. A species that calls themselves the Sindari Horde. They have conquered 12 systems. Billions of lives lost. We know almost nothing about them except that they are powerful and they are coming this way. The holographic display changed, showing a map of the galaxy. Red markers indicated Sindari-controlled territory. The red area was growing, expanding toward council space like a spreading infection. The council proposes a joint military task force to stop this threat, Vexthor announced. We need a commander who understands warfare, who will not break when facing a powerful enemy. Despite our concerns about human aggression, we acknowledge that humanity has never lost a war. Lisa felt a mix of emotions. Pride certainly, but also worry. The galaxy was asking humans to fight again, to risk lives for species that feared them. Who would lead this task force? She asked. We propose Commander Jake Morrison of the UNS Defiant. His record is impressive. Will humanity accept this responsibility? Lisa thought for a moment. I must consult with our military command, but I believe Commander Morrison will accept. 3 hours later, Jake stood in his ready room reading the official orders on his datapad. The mission was clear. Take a fleet of ships from various council species, meet the Sinduri horde at the Epsilon frontier and stop their advance. Simple on paper, probably hell in practice. His first officer, Lieutenant Kate Sullivan, entered the room. She was young, only 26, but sharp as a knife. Her red hair was pulled back in a tight bun, regulation standard. Sir, the fleet is assembling, she reported. We have 12 ships total. 4 human cruisers, 3 Krillian battleships, 2 Vorash carriers, and 3 support vessels from smaller species. Good. Jake nodded. What's the crew morale? High, sir. Everyone's ready to prove themselves. Jake looked at his lieutenant. She had that eager look in her eyes. That confidence that came from youth and limited experience. He'd had that same look once before he learned that confidence could get you killed. Kate, this isn't like our previous engagements. The Sindari have defeated every force sent against them. They adapt quickly. They don't negotiate. Make sure the crew understands that. Yes, sir. After she left, Jake opened a secure file on his terminal. It was marked with the highest classification level. The message was short. Tier 1 assets available if needed. Authorization code Shadow Protocol. Jake stared at the message for a long moment. Tier 1. The galaxy didn't know about Tier 1. They'd never needed to. Regular human forces had always been enough. He thought about the soldiers behind that classification, the training they underwent, the things they could do. With a quick motion, Jake deleted the message. His people could handle this. They were good soldiers, well-equipped and motivated. They didn't need the specialists, not yet. Maybe not ever. On the other side of the galaxy, in a facility that didn't exist on any official map, a different kind of soldier received the same notification. Colonel Alex Mercer read the message on his tactical display, then went back to his training exercise. He was shooting targets at 900 meters, each shot hitting exactly where he intended. Around him, other operators worked on their own skills. Some practiced hand-to-hand combat. Others ran through tactical scenarios in virtual reality pods. These were the Tier 1 operators, the Shadow Unit. They didn't wear standard uniforms. They didn't march in parades. Most of the regular military didn't even know they existed. They were the soldiers that humanity kept hidden, the answer to threats that normal forces couldn't handle. Lieutenant Emma Hayes finished her own training session and walked over to Alex. She was shorter than most soldiers, but that was an advantage in her line of work. Her brown eyes missed nothing, and her movements held the fluid grace of someone who'd spent years perfecting close-quarters combat. Think they'll call us in? She asked. Alex shrugged. Morrison's good. He might not need us, and if he does, then we'll do what we always do. Emma smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. Good. I was getting bored. Back on the UNS Defiant, Jake Morrison stood on the bridge as his ship jumped to faster-than-light travel. Around him, the fleet followed in perfect formation. They were heading to the Epsilon frontier to face an enemy that had crushed everyone else who'd tried to stop them. Jake looked at his crew. Young faces, mostly. Good people who believed in their mission. They thought they understood war. They thought they knew what humanity was capable of. He hoped they were right. He hoped regular forces would be enough. But deep in his mind, Jake knew the truth. The galaxy feared humanity because of what they'd seen humans do in war. They feared the regular soldiers, the standard tactics, the refusal to surrender. If that fear was justified by normal troops, what would happen if the galaxy ever met the real warriors? The ones who lived in shadows and moved like ghosts? Jake shook his head. That was a problem for another day. Right now, he had a battle to prepare for and a crew to keep alive. The Sindari were coming, and the galaxy was counting on humanity to stop them. The ship hummed around him as stars stretched into lines outside the viewport. War was coming. As always, humans would be ready. The Epsilon frontier was a collection of star systems on the edge of council space. 3 planets housed colonies, mining operations, and trading posts. Nearly 2 million beings called this region home. Now red warnings flashed across every tactical display as the Sindari fleet approached. Jake Morrison stood on his bridge, studying the enemy formation. The Sindari ships were unlike anything he'd seen before. They were dark, angular vessels that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Their formation moved with precision, like a school of predatory fish hunting in deep water. Enemy fleet count? Jake asked. 43 capital ships over 100 smaller craft, his tactical officer reported. They're maintaining a tight formation. No scouts forward, no reserve forces. Everything in one group. Kate Sullivan frowned at her console. That doesn't make tactical sense. They're leaving themselves vulnerable to flanking maneuvers. Unless they don't think we can hurt them, Jake said quietly. He'd read the reports. Every fleet that engaged the Sindari had been destroyed. Not defeated, destroyed. All ships battle formation Delta. We hit them from 3 angles simultaneously. The Council fleet moved into position. The Krillian battleships formed the center line, their heavy armor and powerful weapons serving as the hammer. Human cruisers split into 2 groups, flanking left and right. The Vorash carriers hung back, ready to launch their fighter squadrons. On the Sindari flagship, Warlord Kesharak watched the Council forces position themselves. His species had evolved on a high-gravity world, making them short but incredibly strong. Thick armor plates covered his body, and forearms allowed him to work multiple control stations at once. The prey organizes itself, he growled to his officers. The humans lead them. These are the ones the galaxy fears? Intelligence reports indicate humans are dangerous, one officer cautioned. Kesharak laughed, a harsh barking sound. We have crushed 12 systems. We have broken every fleet sent against us. These humans bleed like all the others. Begin the attack. The Sindari fleet surged forward, moving faster than expected. Weapons fire lit up the space between the 2 forces. Energy beams and projectile weapons crossed in deadly patterns. The battle had begun. Jake gripped his command chair as the ship shook from incoming fire. All batteries return fire. Kate, plot us an intercept course for their flagship. Sir, that will put us in the middle of their formation. I know. Do it. The UNS Defiant accelerated, its weapons blazing. Around it, the other human cruisers matched its pace. They dove into the Sindari formation like wolves among sheep, their guns never stopping. The Krillian battleships followed, their heavier weapons hammering away at Sindari shields. For the first hour, the battle went according to plan. The Council fleet's coordinated attack caught the Sindari off guard. 3 enemy ships exploded, their hulls torn apart by concentrated fire. 2 more drifted dead in space, their crews killed by Vorash boarding parties. Then everything changed. The Sindari fleet suddenly split into smaller groups. They stopped fighting as a single mass and began using tactics that mirrored the Council forces. When human ships tried to flank, Sindari vessels were already there waiting. When the Krillians pushed forward, they found themselves surrounded. They're adapting, Kate said, disbelief in her voice. How are they adapting this fast? Jake watched his tactical display with growing concern. The Sindari weren't just adjusting. They were learning, evolving their strategy in real time. It was like fighting a mirror that learned from every move you made. Focus fire on their command ships, Jake ordered. We cut off the head, maybe the body stops working. But every time they identified what looked like a command vessel, it pulled back and another ship took its place. The Sindari fleet operated like a hive mind, each ship supporting the others seamlessly. The battle turned into a brutal grind. Ships on both sides burned and died. The UNS Defiant took hit after hit, its shields flickering under the assault. Alarms blared throughout the ship as systems failed and crew members rushed to repair critical damage. Kate supervised the damage control teams while managing her own station. She was everywhere at once, coordinating repairs, redirecting power, keeping the ship fighting. A console exploded near her and she pulled an injured crewman to safety without missing a beat. Hull breach on Deck 7, someone called out. Sealing bulkheads. Weapons Array 2 is offline. Medical teams to Deck 4. The reports came in a steady stream, each one telling the same story. They were losing. Not quickly, but steadily. The Sindari were grinding them down. Dr. Ben Carter, the fleet's xenobiologist, worked frantically in his lab aboard one of the support ships. He studied every bit of data he could gather about the Sindari. Their tactics, their ship movements, their communication patterns. There had to be a weakness, some flaw in their system. They're using a distributed intelligence network, he muttered into his recorder. Each ship contributes to the collective decision-making process. That's why they adapt so fast. They're not following orders from a commander. They're all thinking together. He sent his findings to Jake, hoping it would help. But even knowing how the Sindari worked didn't tell them how to beat it. On the third day of fighting, the Krillian battleship warriors' pride broke apart under sustained fire. 2,000 Krillian warriors died in seconds. The sight shook the other council ships. Krillian vessels were supposed to be unbreakable. Their armor was legendary. If the Sindari could destroy them so easily, what chance did anyone else have? "Sir, the Vorash carriers are withdrawing," Kate reported. "They say they've lost too many fighters." Jake felt frustration burn in his chest. He couldn't blame them. The Vorash had fought bravely, but their losses were unsustainable. Let them go. All human ships form a defensive line around the remaining Krillian vessels. 4 human cruisers moved into position, their weapons creating a wall of fire between the Sindari and their allies. They bought time, but it cost them. The UNS Defiant's sister ship, the UNS Guardian, took a direct hit to its reactor. The explosion lit up space like a small sun. 400 crew members died instantly. Kate watched the Guardian's marker disappear from her display. She'd trained with many of those crew members, had drinks with them during shore leave. Now they were gone, turned to vapor and debris in a fraction of a second. "Keep fighting," Jake's voice cut through her shock. "Honor them by winning." But they weren't winning. 3 weeks into the battle, the Council fleet had been cut in half. The Sindari kept coming, kept adapting, kept winning. They pushed deeper into Council space, threatening core worlds. Billions of civilians evacuated as the Sindari advance continued. Jake sat in his ready room, looking at casualty reports. So many dead, so many ships destroyed. His tactics weren't enough. His training wasn't enough. For the first time in his career, Jake Morrison was facing defeat. The door chimed. "Come in," he called. Kate entered, her uniform stained with soot and dried blood. She looked exhausted. They all were. "Sir, we've received requests for retreat orders from 3 ships. The crews are at their breaking point. Tell them to hold position. Sir, with respect, maybe we should consider falling back. Regroup. Develop new strategies." Jake looked at his young officer. She'd grown up in the past 3 weeks. The eager confidence had been burned away, replaced by hard experience. She'd led boarding actions, directed fire teams, and pulled wounded crew members from damaged sections. She'd earned her place on this bridge many times over. "If we retreat, the Sindari take these systems," Jake said. 2 million civilians. We can't let that happen. Then what do we do? Jake pulled up the secure communication channel he'd ignored for weeks. His finger hovered over the send button. Pride warred with practicality in his mind. Admitting he needed help felt like failure. But letting people die because of his pride? That was worse than failure. That was criminal. He pressed the button. The message was simple. Request Tier 1 deployment. Authorization code Shadow Protocol. We need you here. Kate looked at the screen. "Sir, what's Tier 1? "Help," Jake said simply. The kind of help the galaxy has never seen. On the other side of the battle line, Kesharak celebrated his victories. The humans fought well, better than most species. They showed courage and tactical skill. But courage wasn't enough. Skill wasn't enough. In the end, they bled and died like everyone else. The humans send more messages, an officer reported. They are calling for reinforcements. "Let them call," Kesharak said. "More prey to hunt, more ships to destroy. The Sindari horde cannot be stopped." Back on the UNS Defiant, Jake waited for a response to his message. Hours passed. He began to wonder if Tier 1 would answer at all. Maybe they were deployed elsewhere. Maybe the situation wasn't serious enough to warrant their attention. Maybe he really was on his own. Then his console beeped. A new message appeared. Shadow unit deploying. Yeta 72 hours. Hold position. Help is coming. Jake read the message 3 times. 72 hours. 3 more days of fighting. 3 more days of watching his people die. But if they could hold for 3 days, if they could survive just a little longer, then maybe there was hope. He stood up and walked back to the bridge. His crew looked at him, waiting for orders, waiting for hope. "All ships, this is Morrison," he broadcast to the entire fleet. "We've got..." The UNS Phantom appeared at the rally point like a ghost materializing from fog. One moment the scanners showed empty space, the next moment a ship was there. Jake Morrison stared at his display confused. His sensors hadn't detected any jump signature, no energy spike, nothing. The vessel had simply appeared. "What kind of ship is that?" Kate Sullivan asked, studying the unusual readings. "I've never seen that design before." "That's because it doesn't exist in any official records," Jake said quietly. He opened a communication channel. UNS Phantom, this is Commander Morrison. Welcome to the party. The response came immediately. The voice was calm, almost casual. Commander Morrison, this is Colonel Alex Mercer. Permission to come aboard, granted. Bay 3 is clear. 20 minutes later, Jake stood in the docking bay watching a small shuttle land. The bay doors hissed open and 6 people walked out. They didn't march. They didn't salute. They just moved with a fluid confidence that made Jake's veteran crew look nervous. Colonel Alex Mercer was tall and lean, with short dark hair and eyes that seemed to catalog everything they saw. He wore a black uniform without any rank insignia or unit patches. The 5 soldiers with him looked the same. Anonymous. Forgettable, except for the way they moved and the way their eyes never stopped scanning. Commander Morrison. Alex extended his hand. His grip was firm but not aggressive. Sorry it took us a while to get here. You're here now. That's what matters. Jake gestured toward the ready room. Let me brief you on the tactical situation. In the ready room, Jake pulled up star charts and battle reports. The Sindari have 40 ships left in their main fleet. We're down to 8 operational vessels. They've been pushing us back for 3 weeks. Every tactic we try, they adapt to within hours. Alex studied the data with intense focus. Beside him, Lieutenant Emma Hayes leaned forward, her brown eyes tracking ship movements and attack patterns. She was shorter than most soldiers, maybe 5'3", but something about her presence filled the room. Distributed intelligence network, Emma said. They're thinking collectively. That's why they adapt so fast. Our xenobiologist came to the same conclusion, Jake confirmed, but knowing how they work hasn't helped us stop them. That's because you're fighting them head-on, Alex said. You're using conventional warfare against an enemy that can outthink conventional tactics. He looked up at Jake. We don't fight conventionally. What do you need from us? Just keep doing what you're doing. Keep their attention focused on your fleet. We'll handle reconnaissance first. Figure out their weaknesses. Then we'll exploit those weaknesses until they break. Jake wanted to ask more questions. How many operators did Alex have? What kind of equipment? What was their plan? But something in the colonel's expression told him those questions wouldn't be answered. When do you start? We already have, Alex said. 3 hours earlier, while the UNS Phantom was still approaching, 3 operators had launched from the ship in a small, nearly invisible insertion craft. Emma Hayes piloted the craft with smooth precision, bringing them within 5 kilometers of a Sindari patrol vessel. Distance good, said Sergeant Matt Cruz from the weapons station. He was stocky and powerful, with hands that could break steel or delicately wire explosives. Right now he was scanning the Sindari ship's energy signature, reading their shield frequency. Power distribution is weird. They've got heavy armor on the front and sides, but the rear sections are weaker. Design flaw or intentional? Asked the 3rd operator, a sniper named Danny Park. He was already assembling his rifle, a custom weapon that fired projectiles at hypersonic speeds. If it's intentional, it's a trap. Either way, it's information, Emma said. She nudged the craft closer, staying just outside the Sindari sensor range. Matt, can you hack their communications? Working on it. Matt's fingers danced across his console. Code streamed past on multiple screens as he probed the Sindari network. Their encryption is tough but not impossible. Give me 20 minutes, they waited in silence. The insertion craft drifted in the dark, its stealth systems making it nearly invisible. Emma kept one hand on the controls, ready to run if things went wrong. Danny watched through his scope, tracking potential targets. Matt muttered to himself as he worked through layers of alien computer security. Got it, Matt finally announced. I'm into their local network. No direct access to the fleet-wide system yet, but I can hear their chatter. They're coordinating a supply run. 3 ships heading to an asteroid field to collect raw materials. Perfect, Emma said. She opened a channel back to the Phantom. Colonel, we've got a soft target. 3 supply ships heading to Sector 779. Recommend interdiction. Alex's voice came back immediately. Confirmed. Track them and report positions. Do not engage until I give the word. For the next 6 hours, Emma's team followed the Sindari supply ships. They watched as the alien vessels used mining drones to collect valuable ores and rare elements. They noted the security patterns, the guard rotations, the communication protocols. Every detail went into their reports. Supply ships are loaded and heading back, Danny reported. They're moving slow. Heavy cargo. That's our window, Emma said. Relay coordinates to the strike team. On the UNS Phantom, Alex gathered his assault team. 12 operators, the best of the best. They wore armor that seemed to shift and blend with their surroundings. Their weapons were compact but deadly, designed for efficiency rather than show. Standard interdiction, Alex briefed them. We board the lead ship, neutralize the crew, and take control. Once we have their codes and command access, we scuttle all 3 ships. Make it look like an accident. The Sindari need to think their logistics are failing, not that they're under attack. The operators checked their gear one final time. No questions. No complaints. They'd done this type of mission hundreds of times. The strike was surgical. The Phantom dropped out of stealth just long enough to deploy the boarding teams, then vanished again. Breaching pods latched onto the Sindari ship's hulls. Cutting torches burned through armor. Within seconds, operators were inside. The Sindari crew never knew what hit them. 12 aliens died in the first 30 seconds. The rest lasted less than a minute. Alex moved through the ship like water, his weapon firing with precise economy. Every shot hit exactly where it needed to. Behind him, operators secured sections and accessed computer systems. Control, room secured, one operator reported. Engineering, secured, said another, Alex. Reached the bridge and looked at the Sindari. Control systems. Matt, I need you here. Get into their main computers. Matt Cruz appeared beside him, his portable hacking rig already connected to the alien systems. Beautiful. Their security is way better on the inside, but I can work with this. Give me 5 minutes. While Matt worked, the other teams finished securing all 3 ships. 27 Sindari warriors lay dead. The operators had taken 0 casualties. It wasn't a fair fight. It wasn't supposed to be. Got it, Matt said triumphantly. Full access to their navigation, communications, and supply databases. Downloading everything now. How long until their fleet notices these ships are compromised? Maybe 20 minutes. They do regular check-ins, plant the charges, make it look like a reactor malfunction. We need this to seem like an accident. The operators placed explosive charges throughout the ships, carefully positioned to simulate a catastrophic power failure. When they detonated, it would look like the reactors had overloaded. Just bad luck. Just 3 ships lost to mechanical failure. The boarding teams evacuated back to the Phantom. Seconds later, the charges detonated. 3 supply ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light. Debris scattered across space. To any observer, it looked exactly like a terrible accident. First blood, Alex said quietly. Now they know something's wrong, but they don't know what. Over the next 72 hours, Shadow Unit operated like a plague, moving through the Sindari fleet. Small teams struck at vulnerable targets. Supply lines disappeared. Communications satellites went offline. Guard patrols vanished without a trace. Emma's 3-person team became a ghost story among Sindari warriors. They infiltrated a forward base on a captured moon, killed 12 guards, destroyed a fuel depot, and escaped before anyone knew they were there. When Sindari reinforcements arrived, they found only bodies and questions. Danny Park set up sniper positions on asteroids and derelict ships. He picked off Sindari commanders at ranges that should have been impossible. After the 3rd assassination, Sindari leaders stopped going near windows or external viewports. Fear was spreading. The Sindari sent a hunter-killer team to find the human infiltrators. 30 elite warriors, their best soldiers armed with advanced sensors and heavy weapons. They tracked what they thought were Emma, Matt, and Danny to an abandoned mining station. The Sindari team moved carefully through the dark corridors. Their sensors pinged contact signatures, heat readings, movement. They thought they had the humans cornered. It was a trap. Emma had rigged the entire station with remote explosives and automated weapons. When the Sindari team entered the kill zone, she triggered everything at once. The station became a death trap. Walls exploded. Automated guns fired from concealed positions. Corridor sections depressurized. The 3 operators watched from a safe distance as the Sindari team. The conference room aboard the UNS Defiant was crowded. Jake Morrison stood at the head of the table, with Kate Sullivan beside him. The remaining Council fleet commanders attended via holographic projection. Krillian officers, Vorash coordinators, and representatives from a dozen other species filled the virtual space. But everyone's attention was on the human in black standing beside Jake. Colonel Alex Mercer brought up a tactical display. Thanks to our reconnaissance, we now have complete intelligence on the Sindari fleet. Ship positions, shield frequencies, command structure, supply lines, and response protocols. In short, we know everything about them and they know almost nothing about us. Acrylian Commander General Throck growled skeptically. If you truly have such intelligence, why not simply attack their command ship? Cut off the head. Because we can do better than that, Alex replied. The Sindari use distributed intelligence. Killing their commanders won't stop them. We need to break their entire system simultaneously, shatter their coordination, make them unable to adapt. He changed the display to show 7 different systems. Shadow Unit will deploy across these locations at the same time. We'll hit command centers, communication hubs, and their main logistics base. While we're inside their infrastructure, Commander Morrison's fleet will engage their main battle force here. He highlighted a nebula region, the Trinity Nebula. It's dense with radiation and sensor interference. Perfect for an ambush. You want us to lure them into a trap? Jake asked. Not just lure, bait. The Sindari think they're winning. They think they've measured our capabilities. Show them a vulnerable target and they'll rush to take it. While they're focused on your fleet, we dismantle their support structure. When they try to adapt, they'll find their systems compromised. No communication, no coordination, just isolated ships fighting alone. Kate studied the plan. It was aggressive, maybe even reckless. But after weeks of losing, aggressive felt right. How many operators can you deploy across 7 systems? 32 total, Alex said. 4 to 5 per target, enough. The Voresh coordinator, Speaker Zinn, buzzed with concern. You plan to divide your already small force across vast distances. This seems unwise. Emma Hayes spoke up from her position at the back of the room. One properly trained operator is worth 100 regular soldiers. Not as an insult to regular forces, just a fact. We train for missions like this. It's what we do. And if you fail, Throck challenged. We don't fail, Emma said simply. The meeting continued for another hour, refining details and coordinating timing. When the council commanders finally disconnected, Jake found himself alone with Alex. You really think this will work? Jake asked. I know it will work. The question is how many of your people die before we make it work? Alex met his eyes. That's why we're here. To make sure as few die as possible. Why does Shadow Unit exist? Why hide soldiers like you? Alex considered the question. Because the galaxy already fears humanity. They fear our regular forces, our conventional military. If they knew about us, about what we can really do when we stop holding back, they'd never trust us again. Sometimes the best weapon is the one nobody knows you have. 6 hours later, Shadow Unit began deploying. Small teams launched from the UNS Phantom and stealth craft, each heading to their assigned target. Emma, Matt, and Danny were assigned to the Sindari communication hub in the Arcos system. Looks like a fortress, Danny observed as they approached. The hub was built into a large asteroid with defensive platforms and patrol ships surrounding it. Fortresses have weaknesses, Emma said. She brought up the schematics Matt had stolen. Service entrance on the lower hemisphere. Supply ships dock there every 6 hours. Next shipment arrives in 20 minutes. We hijack a supply ship? Matt asked. We become a supply ship. They intercepted the incoming cargo vessel far from the hub, jamming its communications. The Sindari crew never had time to send a distress signal. Emma's team eliminated them efficiently and took control of the ship. Matt altered the identification codes and manifest data. As far as the hub knew, this was just another routine delivery. The docking procedure was smooth. Automated systems guided them into the landing bay. Scanners checked the cargo, but not the crew compartments where the operators waited. When the docking clamps secured and the bay doors sealed, Emma gave the signal. They moved like shadows through the facility. The Sindari guards were trained and alert, but they weren't expecting infiltrators. They thought they were safe inside their fortress. Emma killed 3 guards before they could raise an alarm. Matt and Danny secured the corridors leading to the communication center. Main objective is 30 meters ahead, Matt whispered. I'm reading 14 life signs inside. Heavy security. Breach and clear, Emma ordered. They placed charges on the door. The explosion sent the door flying inward. Emma was through before the smoke cleared, her weapon finding targets with mechanical precision. Danny followed, his rifle barking in controlled bursts. Matt entered last, already moving toward the computer systems. The fight lasted 20 seconds. 14 Sindari warriors dropped. Emma took a grazing hit to her shoulder but barely noticed. She'd had worse. Clear, Danny announced. Get to work, Matt, Emma said, applying a quick bandage to her shoulder. Matt connected his equipment to the Sindari systems. This is their main relay station. Every fleet communication in this sector passes through here. I can inject code into their network. corrupt their data, reroute their messages. I can make them blind and deaf. Do it. While Matt worked, Emma and Danny set up defensive positions. They had maybe 10 minutes before Sindari security responded. The facility would lock down and troops would flood the corridors. Done, Matt announced. I've planted logic bombs throughout their network. When the other teams hit their targets, everything activates simultaneously. Their communications will collapse like a house of cards. Extraction time, Emma said. We go out loud. They fought their way back to the stolen supply ship. Sindari soldiers rushed to stop them, but the narrow corridors worked against the defenders. Emma and Danny created a wall of fire that nothing could push through. Matt tossed grenades that exploded in clouds of smoke and shrapnel. The supply ship launched under heavy fire. Defensive platforms tracked them, but Emma's piloting was too good. She wove through their fire, using the asteroid's terrain to shield them. Within minutes, they were clear and accelerating away. Command, this is Team 3, Emma reported. Primary objective complete. Secondary objectives achieved. Moving to Rally Point Alpha. Copy, Team 3, Alex's voice responded. Good work. All teams report similar success. Standing by for Phase 2. Across 7 systems, Shadow Unit teams completed their missions. Commander Steve Walsh led a 5-person team that infiltrated the Sindari logistics base. They moved through underwater sections that the Sindari thought were secure, placed charges on fuel storage tanks, and escaped before the entire base went up in flames. Captain Laura Bennett flew her experimental stealth fighter into a Sindari shipyard. While enemy sensors looked the wrong direction, she planted tracking beacons on 3 capital ships under construction. Those beacons would allow human forces to target the vessels from extreme range. Every mission succeeded. Every objective achieved. The Sindari were being systematically dismantled, and they didn't even know it yet. In the Trinity Nebula, Jake Morrison positioned his fleet carefully. The nebula's radiation made sensors unreliable. Ships had to rely on visual tracking and short-range scanners. It was dangerous ground for any battle, which made it perfect for an ambush. All ships in position, Kate reported. We're broadcasting on all frequencies. Distress signals, emergency codes, everything. We look like sitting ducks. That's the idea, Jake said. Now we wait. The wait wasn't long. Keshrak received reports of a human fleet trapped in the Trinity Nebula. Their ships damaged and unable to jump to faster-than-light travel. It was too perfect an opportunity to pass up. He ordered his entire fleet to converge on the location. Finally, Keshrak said as his ships entered the nebula. We end this now. All ships, weapons ready. Show these humans what true power looks like. The Sindari fleet advanced in formation. Their sensors were limited by the nebula, but they didn't care. They had overwhelming numbers. 40 ships against the humans' 8. This would be a massacre. Then Alex gave the signal. All teams execute Phase 2. Now. Throughout the Sindari fleet systems, Matt's code activated. Communication channels went dark. Targeting computers began showing false data. Shield generators received corrupted commands. The distributed intelligence network that made the Sindari so dangerous suddenly collapsed. Ships couldn't coordinate. Commanders couldn't communicate. Each vessel found itself alone. What's happening? Keshrak demanded. Why aren't we receiving updates from the other ships? Communications are down, Warlord. All channels are showing errors. Our targeting systems are malfunctioning. The tactical network has collapsed. At the same moment, Jake's fleet dropped their electronic camouflage. They weren't damaged at all. They were perfectly positioned and ready to fight. Worse, they weren't alone. A dozen more human ships emerged from hiding spots throughout the nebula, ships that had been waiting silently while the Sindari walked into the trap. The human colony of New Terra sat on the edge of Council space. Home to 3 million civilians, it was a peaceful world of farms and mining operations. The colonists were families, workers, people who wanted nothing to do with war. When the Sindari fleet appeared in orbit, they had less than an hour to evacuate to underground shelters. Keshrak stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the colony below. He had only 7 ships left from his once mighty fleet. 7 ships out of 40. The humans had broken his forces, humiliated him, and destroyed everything he'd built. But he still had these 7 ships, and he would use them to hurt humanity in the only way he could. Prepare orbital bombardment, he ordered.
Target the population centers.
If we cannot defeat human warriors, we will kill their families. His officers hesitated. Attacking military targets was one thing. Killing civilians was something else. But Kesharak's rage had burned away any mercy. The humans had made him look weak. They'd made him afraid. He would make them suffer for that. Did I stutter? Kesharak roared. Fire! The Sindari weapons began charging. In the colony below, emergency alarms blared. Parents grabbed children and ran for the shelters. Emergency services tried to evacuate hospitals and schools. They had minutes at most. Then space itself seemed to tear apart. The UNS Phantom dropped out of stealth drive directly above the colony. Behind it, 3 more stealth vessels appeared. Ships that the galaxy didn't know existed. They'd been waiting. Shadow Unit had anticipated exactly this move. This is Colonel Alex Mercer to Sindari forces. His voice broadcast on all frequencies. You have 10 seconds to power down your weapons and surrender. If you fire on that colony, I promise you will not live to regret it. Kesharak laughed bitterly. 4 ships against 7? You're outnumbered, human. You cannot stop us all. I don't need to stop you all, Alex replied calmly. I just need to stop you. Before Kesharak could respond, the Phantom's weapons fired. Not at his ship, not at the fleet. The shots were impossibly precise, threading through the formation to hit specific targets. The weapons computers on 3 Sindari ships exploded. The shield generators on 2 others overloaded. In 5 seconds, half his fleet was crippled without destroying a single ship. How? Kesharak whispered. No weapon system should have that kind of accuracy. No targeting computer could calculate those shots. Because we don't miss, Emma Hayes said from her weapons station aboard the Phantom. Her fingers danced across the controls as she lined up another impossible shot. Ever, the other stealth ships opened fire. Laura Bennett's experimental fighters launched. Their weapon systems integrated with AI that could predict enemy movements before they happened. Steve Walsh's team had infiltrated one of the Sindari ships during the confusion, and now controlled its weapons, turning it against its own fleet. All weapons, disable those ships. Alex ordered. I want them alive. They're going to deliver a message. The Sindari fleet tried to fight back, tried to maneuver, tried to escape. Nothing worked. The human stealth ships moved with impossible speed and agility. Every shot they fired hit exactly where intended. Within 12 minutes, all 7 Sindari vessels were disabled, their crews terrified and confused. Below, on New Terra, colonists watched the battle from their shelters. They saw human ships moving like predators among the Sindari vessels. They saw firepower that was precise rather than overwhelming, surgical rather than destructive. They realized they were watching something the galaxy had never seen before. Jake Morrison arrived with the regular fleet 30 minutes later. By the time he reached New Terra, the fighting was over. The Sindari ships floated dead in space, their systems offline but their crews alive. Status? Jake asked as he boarded the Phantom. All hostile vessels disabled, Alex reported. 0 civilian casualties. We're loading the Sindari survivors into cargo holds. They're going to take a message back to their home system. What message? That there are levels to human warfare they never imagined. That what they faced for the past month was just regular military. That if they ever threaten Council space again, we'll stop being gentle. Kate Sullivan, who'd accompanied Jake, stared at the tactical data. You disabled 7 ships in 12 minutes. How is that even possible? Emma looked up from her station. Training, technology, teamwork. We've spent years perfecting these tactics. What you saw today is the result of 5,000 hours of simulation training per operator, equipment that costs more than most ships, and a level of coordination that most species can't comprehend. Plus, Matt Cruz added from the engineering section, we really don't like people who threaten civilians. That makes us motivated. Kesharak was brought aboard the Phantom in restraints. He looked smaller now, defeated. Alex stood before him, arms crossed. You are going to return to your people, Alex said. You're going to tell them everything that happened here. How your fleet of 40 ships was destroyed by human forces. How your final attack was stopped in minutes. You're going to make them understand that humans are not prey. Why let me live? Kesharak asked bitterly. You've already humiliated me. Because dead enemies tell no stories. Living ones spread legends. You're going to tell your people about Shadow Unit. About human operators who move like ghosts and fight like demons. You're going to make them afraid of the dark. And when they're afraid enough, they'll stop invading other species. Kesharak's 4 arms trembled. You want me to create fear. I want you to create truth. We are scary. We are dangerous. But we only fight when forced to. You forced us. Others should learn from your mistake. The Sindari survivors were loaded onto a single functioning ship, given coordinates to their home system, and sent away. They carried with them the story of humanity's elite forces, of soldiers who appeared from nowhere and disappeared just as quickly, of precision that bordered on supernatural and technology that seemed like magic. 3 days later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. The chamber was packed with representatives from every member species. High Chancellor Vexthor sat on his throne-like chair, his reptilian face showing confusion and concern. Ambassador Lisa Grant stood at the human platform, feeling the weight of hundreds of eyes on her. The galaxy wanted answers. Ambassador Grant, Vexthor began carefully. The Council has reviewed reports from the Sindari conflict. We have questions about human military capabilities, specifically about forces that were not disclosed during your admission to the Council. Lisa had prepared for this moment. High Chancellor, when humanity joined the Council, we provided full disclosure of our regular military forces. We showed you our ships, our weapons, our training methods. Everything we revealed was truthful, but not complete, a Vorash representative buzzed. You did not mention these shadow soldiers, would you have? Lisa countered. If you had a capability that frightened even your allies, would you advertise it? Shadow Unit exists for one purpose: to handle threats that conventional forces cannot. They are deployed rarely and only when necessary. They were necessary against the Sindari, Vexthor observed. Yes. The Sindari conquered 12 systems and killed billions. Our regular forces fought bravely but needed support. Shadow Unit provided that support. Now the threat is ended, and those soldiers have returned to obscurity. That's how it should be. Throck, the Krillian general, stood up. His massive form dominated the chamber. I fought alongside your Commander Morrison. His warriors were brave and skilled. But these other humans, these shadows, they are something else entirely. How many do you have? Enough, Lisa said simply. Enough to protect our allies and stop our enemies. The exact number is classified. And how long have these soldiers existed? Since before we joined the Council. Since before first contact. Humans have always had elite warriors. Every species does. Ours are simply very, very good at their jobs. The chamber erupted in debates and arguments. Some species felt betrayed. Others felt relieved that such power was on their side. A few felt both emotions at once. Vexthor let them argue for several minutes before calling for order. The question before us, the High Chancellor said, is whether humanity's concealment of these capabilities violates Council law and trust. Ambassador Grant argues it does not. Does the Council agree? The vote took an hour. In the end, the decision was narrow but clear. Humanity had not technically violated any laws. They had simply not volunteered information about classified military programs. Many species did the same. The difference was that human classified programs were apparently far more effective than anyone imagined. The Council accepts humanity's explanation, Vexthor announced. However, we request that future deployments of these special forces be coordinated with Council command when appropriate. We can agree to that, Lisa said, with the understanding that some missions require discretion. Understood. Now there is another matter. In light of humanity's demonstrated capabilities and their successful defense of Council space, several species have proposed elevating human status within the Council. Specifically granting humanity a seat on the Security Directorate. Lisa felt surprise. The Security Directorate was the Council's top military authority. Only 5 species held seats. It was a position of enormous power and responsibility. We would be honored, Lisa said carefully, but we want to be clear about